Soviet sightings of UFOs run as long as sightings in America, but most Soviet citizens had no clue what was going on in their own backyards. Welcome to my channel, Historical Studies. Before diving into the mysteries of history, there is a small reminder. If you are really interested in this kind of information, do not hesitate to subscribe to my channel and hit on the bell icon if you don't want to miss out on our new videos. Hill 611 near the village of Dalmagorsk in Primorsky Krai. An amazing event took place on Hill 611 near the village of Dalmagorsk in Primorsky Krai on January 29, 1986, around 7:55 p.m. This ordinary little mining village would suddenly become the most significant location in the whole Soviet Union that evening. Several locals saw a reddish sphere fly into the town that evening from the southeast. The object flew while making no noise and appeared to be a nearly perfect sphere of rust red. For a while the object hovered up and down over the village, moving at a relatively slow pace. Soviet authorities described how the item suddenly jerked or leaped before falling like a rock straight down onto Hill 611. Witnesses heard a dull thump as it impacted and then began to burn intensely for an hour. Valery Dvozilny, head of the Far Eastern Committee for Anomalous Phenomena, arrived at the site 2 days after the crash. Findings: the physical remains were examined at the Omsk branch of the Academy of Sciences, which made a shocking discovery. When these fragments were examined, it was found that they were composed of extremely thin threads that were 17 micrometers in width. Some of the fragments had developed into what seemed to be tiny nets. Each thread was made out of solid, tiny gold wires that were twisted with even thinner threads that were connected together in plates. It would take decades for the technology to reproduce this kind of amazing nanoconstruction, at least not in human hands. Ash discovered on the scene that belonging to a biological being was about the only item they could identify. Perhaps the ashes belonged to an unfortunate animal caught in the crash, or perhaps they belonged to the operator of the mysterious UFO. Unfortunately, the extreme heat prevented any attempt at identification. The flight path of rockets launched by China's Xizang Cosmodrome matches the trajectory described by eyewitnesses. However, because the Chinese wanted to keep their space program as secret as possible, investigators were unable to confirm whether any launches had occurred from the site in January. However, something shocking was found during the investigation. This enigmatic object had not originally been discovered by Soviet residents. It has already been noticed above Chinese territory. The Chinese sighting wasn't the only clue that this object had traveled great distances, though. There was also tangible proof. Examination of the soil at the crash site revealed small pieces of light, gray-colored soil that were compared with soil from a different region of Russia that was thousands of miles away using spectroscopic analysis. 8 days after the crash. On February 8, 1986, at about 8:30 p.m., 8 days after the crash on Hill 611, witnesses once more reported seeing odd objects in the sky. This time, from the north, 2 yellow spheres descended upon the village. The spheres seemed to be looking for something and made their way directly to the crash site. Once there, they made 4 circles around the crash site before turning to the north and returning the way they came. Following year November 28, 1987. In the following year November 28, 1987, reports of flying spheres flood a local military base. Up to 32 flying objects were reportedly spotted by terrified people in 12 separate neighboring villages. Armed Soviet soldiers rushed to the closest villages to see the odd flying lights for themselves after becoming alarmed. They hovered at different heights between 150 and 800 meters with no noticeable noise and no obvious propulsion. People noticed electrical equipment problems as the lights passed over their homes. The object was around 200 or 300 meters, with the front lit up like burning metal. Many of them ran for cover as they realized the item was likely going to crash into them. The UFO simply took off, going over the mountain and disappearing from view. The parallels between this incident and numerous other similar ones in the US would convince researchers that both Americans and Soviets had been watching the same mysterious phenomenon. Other UFO reportings. Soviet pilots, however, were long reporting UFOs and on occasion even being killed by them. 2 Soviet fighters observed a sizable flying disc close to the city of Borisov while performing a normal flight above it. 5 light beams appeared to be coming from the disc. 3 pointed down toward the Earth, while the other 2 pointed up into the sky. However, the aircraft captain passed away a few months after the incident, with cancer being cited as the reason for death. In one high-profile encounter, a UFO nearly started World War III. Colonel Boris Sokolov spoke with Western UFO investigators after the fall of the Soviet Union, reporting that on the night of October 4, 1982, there was a breach of airspace over a nuclear weapons site in Yusovo, Ukraine. The entire facility observed a hovering UFO as it hovered overhead for 4 hours. Witnesses claim that the missiles temporarily activated and entered the launch mode despite not having received any such command or authorization from their control centers. However, after some investigation, it was determined that the UFO phenomenon was highly real and needed further, focused study. The Academy's secret investigation started a year later and ran all the way until the collapse of the Soviet Union. That brings us to the end of the video. Thanks for being to the end of the video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and tell us what you think about this video below in the comment section.